Imagine 30 years of combined experience in coaching women in dating and relationships condensed into the next 69 minutes.
69 minutes?
Yeah, I know, total coincidence.
Right, anyway, the premise is true. My husband and I have been coaching women in dating and relationships for the past 15 years. That's since 2009.
And we've had over 40 million women going through our articles and emails and over tens of thousands of paid members.
And you're about to learn the 5 most important elements of those combined 30 years of experience.
So by the end of the next 69 minutes, I promise you'll have way more understanding, knowledge, and clarity than even some of the self-proclaimed experts out there.
So let's get back to our room and let's get started.
All right, let's go.
Hey guys, it's Renee here.
And Shen.
David. We are the founders of Shen Media and The Feminine Woman, where we teach you how to show up as a high-value, high-status woman who easily inspires a deep sense of emotional commitment
from men.
From men.
All right, welcome to our tiny little apartment in Kuala Lumpur.
Yes, we're world schooling our kids, and
this is our stop, Kuala Lumpur.
This is our stop. Yeah.
We're here on the 48th floor, and so we have an amazing view behind us. We thought we'd take this time today to share with you exactly the biggest things, the most insightful things that we've learned coaching women for the last 30 years combined. So it's 30 years combined.
2009 we started.
Yeah, we started in 2009. So obviously we've seen a lot in this time, and there's been many trends as well, especially on the internet.
Many.
Things come, things go, things get spread like wildfire, and then they die off, basically.
Yeah.
And we want to just talk through some of the biggest things that actually, the biggest insight that we found that actually obviously do work in our line of work. And
the 5 frameworks.
And the things that perhaps don't, and they come and go like fads.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think the way we want to present this video would be through the framework of the 5 frameworks that really work in dating and relationships. And these frameworks don't actually get taught anywhere else. And we've sort of just distilled everything that we've learned. And we're talking about, we've had tens of thousands of customers over the last 15 years. We've had over 40 million women coming through our sites, reading our articles, doing our quizzes, etc. And that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And through all that experience, we've distilled everything down to these 5 big frameworks.
Yeah.
And if you can understand the power of these 5 big frameworks, then you can start to really understand the dynamics of relationships, about men and women, about attraction and love and trust, intimacy versus power struggle, for example. All these things will make sense to you once you see things through these 5 different frameworks.
And they're important because, there's so much just nonsense out there. And we want to give you what's actually going to work to fast track the process to finding that emotional commitment from your ideal man. We don't want you to mess around with the pigs, literally, in power struggles and get.
Because a lot of the advice that you see out there, especially on the internet, they are all to help you perpetuate this sense of power struggle with a man. Like, you want to play hard to get, play this, that, make and chase, play all these games, and as the smart people of the internet would say, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So as you play these games, what you're actually doing is perpetuating power struggle in your love life. And whenever you have a power struggle, you're going to lose out on the real trust that you can actually build between you and your lover. And essentially that is going to take away from the intimacy that you're going to feel in your life.
Well, it's not that we're saying, by the way, it's not that we're saying there are no games in love. Love is a game. Dating is a game. But we don't want you to go into, as I've written many times before in some of the most popular, most read articles on my blog, it's how you enter the game. For example, you don't want to play the dating game not to lose, and you don't want to play games for the sake of power.
Yeah.
But you want to at the same time recognize that dating is a game. Love is a game, and the only true way to play it is with value and with playfulness.
I guess people playing the wrong types of games. They're playing the power struggle game.
They're control games.
Yeah, the control games.
They're attention games.
And those are the wrong types of games to play. Because even if you win, it takes you off path, going into a completely different direction. Even if it doesn't feel like it right now, a year from now, 2 years from now, you're in a totally different destination, and you're in this place where even if you succeed, you have this attention and this sense of control and this sense of certainty, but you don't have that sense of intimacy or trust because you've gravitated away from that from the very start.
Exactly.
So it's very important to understand what advice is going to perpetuate power struggles versus what advice is actually going to help you create a deeper connection, which is ultimately what you want. Because for men to really emotionally commit to you, like for real here, not just put a ring on and just have labels. For men to really emotionally commit to you, they have to trust you. They have to have that sense of trust, and that sense of trust only comes when you let go of that power struggle.
Yeah.
That's it. So over the last 15 years, we've noticed that women basically fall into certain patterns.
Yeah.
Basically, the deal is, okay, most of the issues women have are around commitment. Okay, and perhaps smaller issue there will be finding high value men.
Yeah.
But commitment is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
And obviously there are good reasons why, because men are not like women. Men don't pursue commitment the same way women do.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to understand that, because commitment is an ultimate form of value to women. It's intuitive. You feel it in your gut, like it's value.
Yeah.
Whereas to men, that is not the case. So the way we're going to look at this is through the lens of these 5 frameworks. So over the last 15 years, basically we've helped so many women not only attract high value men into their lives through the act of playfulness, leading with playfulness, through the act of just leading with value altogether, because that's ultimately the game here. Value is the game. The more we lead with value, the more value will come back to us multiplied. And the more you look to take value from the world around you, the more people are going to go, well, she is looking to take value, I'm going to run the other way.
Yeah.
That's essentially how everything works. I mean, we all gravitate towards more value. Whatever has that sense of intrinsic value that we perceive as value, we gravitate towards that. So
let's start now. Let's get into, I feel like we've spent forever on a day introducing
let's start
Let's do the frameworks.
Okay, so the first and the biggest and most important framework is what I call the perceived value disparity.
Yeah.
What does that mean? That means men and women perceive value in very different ways.
They do.
Very different ways. Think about it this way. I mean, women, obviously value is commitment.
Yeah.
Essentially, the biggest source of value. Doesn't mean that's everything, but the biggest source of value is that sense of commitment. Whereas for men, that is not the case.
Yeah.
And the reason why, and I'm sure you know this if you followed our work, is because basically men produce 300 million sperm per day. They don't take a day off.
Yeah.
No holidays, no weekends, no days off.
Yeah.
Whereas a woman in her prime, she produces 1 egg a month.
Yeah.
So there's a massive disparity there, and we really have to appreciate what that really means when it comes to men's behavior versus women's behavior.
Absolutely.
And I remember we did this exercise, and I asked you to pretend that you produce 300 million sperm a day. And
you asked me to pretend I had a male
organs.
Yeah, somehow it went down that road. It wasn't just producing 300 million sperm a day. It was, how would you feel if you had a male appendage? If you had the male genitalia, how would you feel? And it was fun. Like, okay, it's not fun in the sense that I really enjoy having male genitalia, but it's fun thinking like a man in a way, because then you're like, oh, of course I can understand why they do what they do. It makes complete sense. I would too.
Yeah.
I would do helicopters with it. I would want to spread what's,
anywhere,
the seed. Anyway, I mean,
wherever it's convenient. In fact, convenient women is kind of, like
convenient.
Yeah.
Great.
Valuable in that sense.
Yeah.
And of course, the question turned on to me, what would I do if I had, ovaries that produce 1 viable egg a month? And the first response, my intuitive response was to get away from me. Because I had to protect the egg.
Yeah.
So it was quite interesting doing that little exercise to actually be in the body of someone of the opposite sex and really live through their experiences.
I love that.
And then you start to understand why men and women perceive value in very different things.
Yeah.
And that's why we always say, men and women have different reproductive agendas. It's really important to understand and appreciate that and not fight against it.
Yeah.
As long as you fight against it, you're going to get nowhere, and you're going to get resentful, you're going to get angry, you're gonna hate the whole process.
A lot of women really, really resent it. They really resent the fact that men don't, they just want something casual. And I guess I would resent it too if I saw it as a dead-end gig. Like if I saw it as that's all there is with men, I would resent it too. Or perhaps if I had kept meeting terrible men who only wanted me for that, or if I treated sex as if it was nothing, in the end I would end up resenting men too. So first of all, you have to be really careful with assuming that the way you see sex is the way men see it. It's not.
Yeah, men perceive value in very, very different ways. That's why men prefer to keep things casual, prefer to keep women around, even if he doesn't want to commit, because that's an extra set of resources that he can tap into, potentially. So that explains a lot of why men do what they do. And so the question would be, if men want casual sex all the time, if women want commitment, well, how do we balance this out? How do we, get on the same level and actually make a relationship work?
Well, let them have a think about it. Let's 10 seconds on the clock, 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds. What is that happy medium? Is it that the Venn diagram, where and how can women and men meet
their agendas
together?
overlap.
Their agendas will overlap. Where do you think that answer is? 5 seconds, maybe leave a comment below saying it. This is just an exercise for yourself, for your mind and your thoughts to go in the right direction so that you can learn to steer yourself down the right path as well, right? So the answer is emotional attraction.
That's right. So the overlapping area is where you meet your needs and he gets to meet his needs.
Yes.
So it's a win-win battle. It's not a win-lose battle where he gets what he wants, but I don't get what I want, or I get what I want, but he doesn't get what he wants. That's not what you want. You don't want a zero-sum game where there's only one winner. You want a win-win situation.
Exactly.
If you win and your partner loses, that's a lose-lose situation in my books. So the only way for you to be in that overlapping area is if there is emotional attraction in your relationship. Period. That's it. That's the glue. That's it. So the whole point of you entering into a relationship is to cultivate this sense of emotional attraction. That is the bridge between the masculine reproductive agenda and the feminine reproductive agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very important for you to understand that key piece. And we've put together a whole class on emotional attraction. We've put together many other programs around this idea of emotional attraction. It's such a big topic. Obviously, we're not going to cover it in depth in this class, but go check them out. Go understand it, because it is a skill that you can develop to bring out and to cultivate a deeper sense of emotional attraction.
We have the Attraction Control monthly newsletter program where we go through a whole 12 months worth of how to build attraction, actual emotional attraction, so that it leads to a real emotionally committed relationship. We also have my program, Becoming His One and Only, which teaches you how to become the one and only for a man rather than one of many. We will get to that.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. And David has a program, Attraction Pebbles.
Yep. So just little gestures that you can throw at a man to instantly get his attention and hold on to his attention in a playful way, so that you build, you cultivate. It's not something that happens, it doesn't go from 0 to 100, it incrementally grows.
Yeah.
So you throw these little pebbles, you build these little positive interactions, and over time, emotional attraction gets cultivated, grows.
Yeah.
So it's very important to understand that men and women perceive value in different ways. A lot of the times, women fall into the trap of thinking that they're offering value to men when they're not, when it's not value at all. And that is something that I really want you to understand. What you may perceive as value, men may perceive nothing, no value in it whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think it's very hard for women to not only appreciate, but to come to terms with that sometimes.
It's really hard, yeah. Same with men, though.
Yeah, same with men. So I think we have to really be honest with ourselves, because ultimately there are certain things that are so valuable to women and is so lacking value to men. Like, for example, this idea of marriage. To women, it means everything.
Yeah.
For most women, at least, generalizing here. To men, for most men, it offers no value whatsoever.
No, in fact, it probably takes value.
Okay, so and then we're going to draw the distinction between pair bonding and marriage, and we can talk about that later on.
Yeah.
Obviously, very different things. Pair bonding is a very natural process that we humans crave, and we want to actually fall into that pair bond, whereas marriage is a artificial construct, and it's basically a contract that you sign with the government.
Correct.
whereby it's as some divorce lawyers will tell you, the only contract in the world that you'll sign without actually knowing the terms.
Yeah.
So
that's the first framework. We want to move on to the next one?
Oh, a couple more things.
Okay.
A couple more things. So understanding that what you perceive has value, men don't have the same experience whatsoever. And that also, there's an additional part to this framework of perceived value disparity. It's that you have certain feminine biases and men have certain masculine biases that you have to watch out for.
Yeah.
For example, we teach this idea that relationship is the domain of the feminine. What does that mean? Women tend to lead men into the realm of relationships.
Yeah.
And women understand relationships to a infinite greater capacity degree than men.
It's like if you'd spent, your entire life beating on your craft, would you be good at it?
Yeah.
Of course you would be.
Because women think about it,
we talk about it with friends,
and it
we
matters.
focus on it, we obsess about it, we overthink. So everything in our body, biologically, psychologically, physiologically, is wired towards assessing relationships, feeling into them, zooming in on feelings and emotions. And it's almost like nature forcing us to it's not overcorrect, but overcompensate for what men can't do. And you're the other way around. You zoom out.
Yep.
You kind of, if anything, keep relationships, emotionally committed relationships at bay by default.
Yeah.
By default. This doesn't mean they don't want them. Please don't make that an idea that gets stuck in your head. It's just a default behavior, and that is men's overcompensation for us being so heavily involved in relationships. And what they do is great. You zoom out, you're a great problem solver.
Yeah.
You see everything from a bird's eye view, and it's just fascinating. You are so intelligent. That's not to say I'm not intelligent, just in different ways.
Yeah, different ways.
It's incredible to me to look at how you look at the world.
So it's important to understand these biases. And women tend to lead the relationship process. And there's nothing wrong with that. The problem here is if you lead in value-taking ways, then that may drive men away because men feel like, wow, you're trying to extract value that I've worked hard for.
It's a knee-jerk reaction almost.
Yeah, it comes out of fear.
Yeah.
Whereas if you lead the relationship process in value-adding ways, that could mean so much more connection, emotional attraction between you and the man. Because he goes, wow, that's what life could be like. It could be so much more.
Again, your reproductive agendas will come together and have the same. Once they come together, you can walk down the same path and have the same goal.
Yes, we put together a whole program titled High Value Attachment. The whole premise of the program is how do you use this bias, this feminine bias, to attaching early in order to create more emotional attraction. That's the whole premise of the program. I'm sure we'll put a link below. You can check it out. And also, on that note, in terms of the perceived value disparity, if you haven't downloaded our PDF of the 7 common signs a woman is low value in the eyes of men, I'm sure we'll put a link down below as well. Go check it out. Go download it. It's a free report. Go check it out. The whole premise here is that men perceive value differently. And sometimes you may be doing things that you don't quite realize it comes across as low value in the eyes of men. And
vice versa too, but obviously we don't speak to men as much.
Yeah, exactly. Men do the same thing. That causes a lot of disconnect with women.
Yeah.
And so it's important to understand this perceived value disparity. Very, very important. That's why this is number 1.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn one framework, that's the first one to learn.
Yeah.
And understand, truly understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to framework number 2, the one and only versus one of many.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a fascinating framework, something that we've talked about a lot in the last many, many years. We've got a program, Becoming His One and Only. The whole premise here is that men basically see women put women into one of 2 baskets.
Yeah, when they meet them, it happens pretty quickly.
Yeah. They subconsciously categorize them into one of 2 baskets.
Yeah.
And it's not conscious process. It's so that he could better allocate his own resources, time, energy, so that he doesn't waste it. So women go into the basket of one and only or one of many, right?
Right.
And obviously, as a woman, if you want true emotional commitment, you want to be in the basket of one and only.
You'd much rather be in the one and only basket than be married. As in, you'd rather know that you're the one and only versus chasing marriage.
Yeah, have that label.
Because one is an empty chase. It really is an empty chase. And the other is infinity, basically. So...
Yeah, so this is the difference between...
That's a hard one to let go of for women. I just want to acknowledge that, because I know I just said it as if it was nothing, but I know it's a hard one to let go of. Of course you want marriage, you know?
And that will
Every
come.
other person around you is...
That will come. But we've seen the destructive effects of a bad marriage. And that happens so often.
Yeah.
Okay, just because you want to look a certain way, and eventually, if it's built on rotten foundation...
It's envy as well. Like, you see other women getting a ring, and some women, they get very envious.
Yes.
And they just... What are you supposed to do with that envy? How can you not want it, kind of thing? I guess that's kind of how women feel. And to ask them to feel like, well, you know, it's enough just to be one of many is like, do I really want to? You know, like, but it is. As long as you know that you're the one and only, that's where all the security really is.
Yeah, that's where the real value is.
That's where the real
because
value
ultimately, you know, I've heard stories where a man, a rich doctor marries a woman. He has this $5 million mansion, a sports car, 3 kids in expensive schools, and then fast forward 10 years, and he's broke, and you know everything goes down, and they realize that he didn't own that much. It was all just a show.
Yeah.
And he's in like a ton of debt, and that debt gets passed on to the wife after they divorce.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
So, in terms of value, you have to realize where true value actually, where it is.
Yeah.
You can't just look at the surface and just envy what people want you to envy.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the framework, one and only versus one of many, it comes down to this idea of pair bonding. And pair bonding is it's a very natural process, and it's a process that is the result of the cultivation of emotional attraction. Right? That's it. So, it's very important for you to understand what you got to focus on. And I believe people focus way too much on this idea of compatibility and not enough on emotional attraction, emotional connection.
Yeah.
Those two factors drive the commitment process. Those two factors drive the relationship process. Emotional attraction and emotional connection. That's it. Focus on those two elements.
Sorry, just getting rid of mine.
Yep, it's all right. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, compatibility is such a surface level idea.
It's almost as if you have, like, people, like, they want to be compatible because they're uncomfortable with the differences. They want too much for themselves. And so compatibility is a way of saying, well, instead of dancing with the differences, I'm just going to try and force my agenda upon them and get what I want. Like, well, if you want this and I don't want it, or I'm not ready, well, that's too bad. We're not compatible. I need to go to someone else, kind of thing. It's
the answer for those who don't have a deeper understanding.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's a very shallow answer. The deeper answer here is, to be honest, you could be compatible on paper with someone and tick all the boxes for them and they tick all the boxes for you, and you just hate each other's guts. You have no chemistry, you have nothing. So the whole point here is, if you had that emotional attraction, the emotional connection, then even if you have all the big differences in the world, it wouldn't matter. You look past them.
I mean, we're not that compatible if you look at our differences,
we're not,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You should sing our different taste in music.
Oh, it's terrible. Just turn it off, David.
Still, after how many years together? We're 19 years together, we still have these massive differences in music.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tolerate your taste in music.
Thank you.
But would I ever listen to your kind of music?
And David loves to travel, and he will travel no matter the cost on his body, his mind, on anyone else. And I would rather stay at home in my nest and enjoy my nest.
There's so many differences.
Talk about incompatible.
There's so many differences.
Well, yeah. Having said that, you know, when we first got together, we had.
But I wouldn't trade it for the world, right?
Thank you.
When we first got together.
Oh, yeah. When we first got together, we had, you know, just to sort of frame this a bit more for you guys, if you're wondering how the hell we got together anyway. You know, when we first got together, there were similarities. We did have similar values. But here's the key, and this is something we were telling one of our clients, right? 10 years down the track, we've converged on different paths in that way. I'm still going down this I want to ensure health path, right? Whereas you've let that go for the sake of getting the job done, for the sake of solving problems. You'd rather fuel yourself, you know, with things that I consider unhealthy. And I'm not talking about cigarettes or anything. I'm talking about, you know, a chocolate cake here and there, that kind of thing.
Okay, don't have kids. Every kid we have, I put on 20 pounds. Okay, that's the cost of having kids. And if we never had kids.
If we didn't have number 3.
If we didn't have number 3.
Number 3 was the killer. For some reason, God decided to give us the world's most demanding child. That just, like, he's demanding there is no off switch to it.
He's the
His
cutest
demanding
thing,
button,
but
he's so cute.
He's so annoying.
He's adorable. It's not just the demands. And the demands, I don't know why. It's just different from his brothers.
Yeah, and I think every kid, I mean, it's a bigger tax on your resources and attention.
Yeah, the first two, you could
After the
manage.
first kid, I still had six-pack. You can say that after the second kid, I still almost had a six-pack.
Yeah.
But then I've slowly started making brownies.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I became a member of a cake shop. It's a true story. Okay, not my proudest moment.
That's okay, I had a couple of bites. Yeah.
Okay.
So the point is, even if you have the same so-called values at the start, once the demands of life set in, there's always new stresses in your environment or changes in your environment. You could lose someone close to you. You could have, it could be anything like a job loss, you lose a friend, you lose a child, or whatever it is. There are certain stresses in life. And even if they're not stresses, there's certain things that just happen that change you. And arguably, we fit together now even better than we did before when our values were aligned. And that's probably because of something called emotional attraction.
Yeah, it's just,
Not that I feel it for you or anything.
Divorce imminent. The whole point is, so we have built so much emotional connection and interaction over the years, and we still do, we're still playful all the time.
Yeah.
That always brings us together.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how far we go in
The
whichever
association
direction.
is so strong that now when we fight, I will say something that's completely not true. As a woman, we say things that we don't always mean. And then as I say it, I'm already starting to laugh before I finish what I'm saying because I know it's BS. Because the foundation is joy. Our foundation is joy and playfulness. And so it's very hard to move away from that. It's like once your foundation is toxicity and power struggles, it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah, I was going to say, our relationship was never built on power struggles.
No, never.
So that in itself means everything. Because if it was, then any argument, any conflict would bring two people apart. Whereas I believe our conflicts bring us together more.
Yes.
So, we together we have to figure this out, resolve it.
Yeah, so I'm confused how we got to that from the one and only versus one of
No,
many
we
framework.
trade off.
We trade
But the
off.
whole idea is emotional connection, emotional attraction. That is what brings people together. That is what the pair bonding process is all about. And to do that, one key thing here, and if you've heard me talk about this, the prerequisite for emotional attraction is the idea of playfulness.
Yeah.
Lead with playfulness. The more playfulness you can inject into the situation, into your interactions with men, the more likely you're able to cultivate real sense of emotional attraction. And that starts from the very get-go. That starts with your online dating profile if you choose to do online dating. That starts with your first icebreaker. Playfulness is the key here. It's not compatibility, it's playfulness.
We teach, obviously, playfulness under the umbrella of emotional attraction. But I know that there's still a lot of confusion around cultivating that as a skill. And I'm curious to know if this art of playfulness is something that you need more guidance on. If it is, please leave us a comment letting us know so that we can develop something that helps you. Because I know every time I mention it to David, if I say, well, do we need to teach playfulness? Is that something that people need?
Yeah, it's something to tap into. We might do a workshop in the future just to hold women's hands and help them through this idea. It's something that isn't really much taught or encouraged in our society, especially when you become adults. You've got to be all serious and stuff and go to work and sign papers and, log hours. Playfulness, there's almost no room for playfulness sometimes.
No.
Especially when, our relationships start to break down, especially from the family onwards, society starts to break down and the relationships in your family ain't so strong.
Yeah.
That sense of playfulness never gets developed.
It is something that you have to tap into, and it's a skill, and I'm sure we can make it easier for you if you wish. So let us know if you're interested.
So if you want to go down that path, if you're single right now, if you want to figure out how to meet men and cultivate that sense of emotional attraction, lead with playfulness. A couple of great programs, Becoming He's One and Only, and also High Value Profile and Banter, something that I've put together for you to master the art of online dating so that you can lead with playfulness and actually create that sense of rapport with a man instantly.
Yeah.
And we've had cases where, that the man asks the woman out within 5 minutes
Yeah.
of being playful. Now, is that going to work with every single man? Of course not. Absolutely not. What do you do with those men? You weed them out because they're not compatible anyway because they didn't reciprocate to your playfulness.
Yeah.
That's the key.
So they don't want to connect. Their intention is not to connect with you. And this is especially powerful in online dating because you need to
weed them
people
out.
Yeah.
You need to weed them out. 99% of men out there are not good for you. Weed them out quickly so that you don't waste your time and you allocate your resources appropriately with the men who actually are able to reciprocate your playfulness. That is the key.
Yeah.
Okay, so one and only. So if you want to check out Becoming His One and Only, I'm sure there's a link below. If you want to check out High Value Profile and Banter, I'm sure there's a link below. But playfulness is the prerequisite to cultivating emotional attraction, and you really have to understand that.
Okay, that's true. Now,
Number 3, the third framework, very, very important. And we've only really learned this, I think, after we started having kids.
For me, it was before I started having kids.
You're just smart. You're just...
No, not smart. I was just like, so how do I take care of this baby? Like, what's fundamental here? Because I had no mother or sister to call on. I didn't have anyone who I trusted who could, deepen my understanding of motherhood.
Yeah, and traditionally that's passed down from, your tribe, the tribe of women. But in this day and age, that doesn't really exist for a lot of us.
No.
So it's good that you looked into it before we had our firstborn. So it's the framework of attachment styles. And I hate to use the word styles because that kind of has this connotation of preference, but this is anything but preference.
No, it's a pattern.
This is not a preference. It's attachment pattern. These are neurological patterns that have been ingrained into you from a very, very young age. I'd say, from newborn stages.
These are patterns that have helped you survive your family life.
And
even survive your relationship with your parents if it was bad enough, right? So knowing that means that they are very hard to undo. They're very hard to unpack because you want to hold on to them. Essentially, you want to hold on to them because at one stage they meant survival. Right? So let's just list them. Okay, so...
We have a whole quiz, by the way.
Yes. Yes.
In case you haven't done our quiz, I think it's the best one online. There's many of them. It's the best one because I break it down in terms of a scale. It's not just a different set of categories, but rather a sliding scale of how securely attached you are or insecurely attached you are. Because here's the thing, and when we look at attachment styles or attachment patterns, how these patterns develop is determined by your caregivers and how much care you were given and how consistent that was. And the less consistent it was, the more it moves down towards insecure attachment styles. And if you go from, so if your caregiver was there all the time, you have what's known as secure attachment styles, which is, in your words, like winning the lottery, right? Because it's such a gift, and I take it for granted, but it's such a gift for someone who's more anxious because relationship just comes easy to you. And if you're someone...
It's such a gift for someone who's more anxious or someone who's secure?
Oh, it seems like such a gift to someone who's anxious.
Absolutely.
Whereas for me, I just take it for granted because that's all I've ever been.
It would be so nice to be securely attached. I mean, no, sorry, not to be securely, to be given secure attachment is the best gift, not gift, that any parent can give their baby or their child. Now, I have been given that gift, sadly or beautifully, however you look at it, by being with David. I've had 19 beautiful years to develop what is called earned secure attachment. That doesn't mean I'm anxiously attached, by the way, if anyone cared or wondered, but that doesn't mean my anxious patterns do not show up occasionally. They do show up under extreme stress. They do.
And novel situations. Different situations. Should we talk about the New Zealand incident?
No, we can talk about that. Just hold on. We haven't even listed the attachment styles. Can we just rewind to the 1950s? And talk about Bowlby. Just very short segment on this.
All the respect to Bowlby.
All the respect to Bowlby.
Because he actually made a lot of sense in what he... All the research and experiments he did. And Ainsworth. Whereas...
Bowlby came first. Bowlby did... He studied the mother-child relationship and realized the depth of the importance of it. It cannot be ignored in the realm of human psychology because it affects how our personalities are developed. And so it was Mary Ainsworth who did the strange situation experiment, and she she observed through that experiment with these mothers and their babies that there were 3 distinct styles, you want to call them, of attachment. So let's just list those 3, because what's happened is over the years, I don't know if they're psychologists or new experimenters, people who have brought in some new terms, some new words for it, and there's a 4th attachment style now. But if you look into Ainsworth's attachment styles, those 3 styles will give you everything you need to know. So the first style is...
Okay, so we're going to go from secure?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go from secure. So obviously, if you were given the resources, the care, consistently by your caregiver, then you develop a secure sense of, I trust intimacy, I trust love, I trust being close. That's what you get.
Yeah.
And that takes incredible amounts of resources by today's standards because, hey, the mother has to go to work, leave you at play center, not play center, Daycare, that's the word.
It's harder and harder now to give a child secure attachment. Harder and harder.
And it takes so much just energy, resources to do so. That is ideal.
Yeah.
Now, if the mother isn't always there, it's inconsistent, then what happens to the baby is the baby goes, okay, maybe I need to get myself really stressed. They learn the stress pattern, and then maybe eventually the mother comes because the baby's just crying out and going blue. And we know babies mothers who've cried their babies out until they vomited, right?
I was shocked that these people happily told me.
So what happens to the baby's nervous system is that it goes from 0 to 100 really quick. It learns that if I get to 100, maybe she'll come.
Yep.
So forever in that baby's life, anytime they get into a stressful situation, it goes from 0 to 100. And they just don't know why. Why am I so anxious? Why am I so stressed? And that's not calibrated to the context that their lives necessarily, but that's how their nervous system works, and that's anxious attachment. Anxious attachment is typically 0 to 100 very quickly.
Yep.
So that's actually not too bad. That is insecure attachment, but it's not the worst form of insecure attachment. The worst form is if you keep going, and if the mother never responds, then the baby goes, you know what, I went from 0 to 100, she never came. I went from 0 to 100 again, she never came. You know what?
I went from 0 to 100 1,000 times, she never came.
You know what? I've lost hope. I need to save my energy to survive. I need to just hold on to my energy and just be in my delusional little bubble because I need to somehow convince myself I'm safe.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ignore everything else and I'm just going to be in my little bubble. And those are truly avoidant people. And they can end up being real psychopaths and sociopaths, etc. But so those were the main...
And they've studied babies like that in orphanages back in
Russia, I think.
Was it Russia?
After the war or
After
UK.
The war, they were left in rooms by themselves.
Just no one cared for them.
It's very difficult to even talk about, where back then they actually believed that touch was bad for babies, which is so heartbreaking. Oh.
Interesting. Like, how do they even come to... Maybe when you've been left for so long, when you touch a baby, they'll reject you. They'll have a massive negative reaction.
True.
And then they have this idea that, okay, touch is no good for these babies. Whereas what they really need, what these babies really need to heal.
So you're saying the abandonment, leaving them in rooms alone came first?
Yeah, I think they were so avoidant at that stage that touch actually produced a really negative outcome.
Yeah.
So in order to heal someone who's so avoidant, you actually have to go back the sliding scale through anxious first. So very often, you see avoidant patterns, you have to bring them through anxiousness in order to heal that attachment style. And one of the biggest things I hate about how this framework has turned out, especially in recent days, is anyone and everyone on the internet has twisted this framework to go, oh, if a man doesn't respond to me, he's an avoidant.
It's not just that, it's so many things. It's like if he ums and ahs about whether he wants to meet up with me, then he must be an avoidant. If I share with him my needs and he doesn't do anything about it, he's an avoidant. No, you're an entitled prick. Stop.
So this is obviously...
Especially in dating.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm talking about you barely know each other stages, all right?
Don't confuse this amazing framework that is attachment styles, and it's so powerful, with people who avoid you because maybe they don't want you. They don't want you around. Maybe if I keep chasing you and maybe you avoid me, I'll go, oh, she's avoidant. If I keep trying to extract value and you move away, you run away, that's avoidant behavior in a sense, but it's not in the sense from this framework of attachment styles. So don't confuse the two. They're very, very different.
Yeah, I think for women who quickly label men as avoidance, they're really not good at embodying warmth and playfulness. And so it's not so much that you asked for something, it's more how you come across when you ask it, because you may come across as just robotic, self-focused, unattuned, and just completely ignorant of what the man's going through. That's what may make them and ah or seem avoidant or that kind of thing. And
value extracting.
Value extracting. And no, I forgot. You interrupted. I forgot. Okay, all right, you continue.
Okay, value extraction.
Yeah.
So it comes back to the fact that men perceive value in different things.
Yeah.
Okay, and women, you need
going back to the first.
So that's why this is so powerful.
Yeah.
This idea of perceived value disparity. You may perceive a lot of value in me texting you, often.
Yeah.
To let you know what's going on, what I'm feeling, how I'm doing, and keep you informed. Whereas I'm a guy, so all my energy is focused on the next task, solving the next problem, and it has no space in those moments to keep track of my relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's important to understand these biases and understand when you're adding value and when you're not.
Yeah.
So when people avoid you, that doesn't mean that they're avoidant in terms of attachment styles. It just means that maybe they don't perceive value in you, and that's okay sometimes. That's okay. Always look to add value, but sometimes, it might be the wrong person, or it might be the wrong timing, or maybe you're not as skilled in terms of adding value. You're not maybe as skilled in terms of leading with playfulness. So as you get better at it, you'll find more success over time. It is a skill that you want to develop and practice. And especially if you're not familiar with it, when you first go ahead and try and be playful or tap into your playfulness, it may come out a little twisted, kinked, but that's okay. With more practice, you become more attuned to the other person, you become more calibrated to the situation, and it comes out as more value over time. So in terms of attachment styles, that's our number 3 framework. And it's very, very important that you study this. Again, we have a quiz. I'm sure there's a link below. We'll take you to the quiz.
We didn't even mention the other two.
Oh.
So it's secure, anxious, ambivalent, and then avoidant.
Yes, so they're the main framework that Bowlby came up with.
No, that was Mary Ainsworth.
Ainsworth, okay. This is the framework that I want you to use. Now, over time, people have used other words like disorganized or what's the other
Fearful
one?
avoidant.
Fearful avoidant. They're all combinations.
Attachment.
They're all combinations. And so it's very important to not use these categories as something that define you, but understand the whole sliding scale. Because what ends up happening is when you go to anxious a lot, you go from 0 to 100, that overloads your nervous system. And you can only hold on to that for so long because your nervous system will get tired and it'll shut down. Once it shuts down, where you go to is a sense of despondency and what's the word I'm looking for? Dissociation. Exactly, dissociation. And that's completely avoidant. When you're dissociated, you can't respond to anyone.
No.
And so you swing the pendulum a little bit when you go into insecure attachment, when you go from avoidant to anxious to avoidant to anxious, avoidant to anxious, and people use disorganized or fearful avoidance.
So disorganized is a newer style of attachment that they carved out. It's more of a subcategory as we would see it. It's just basically there for you if you don't fully identify with being 100% avoidant in your attachment patterns, and you don't fully identify with being anxious all the time. But rather, maybe you are constantly oscillating between the two, swinging that pendulum, and often what that involves also is really big anger outbursts. And because of these, you've probably also, people use disorganized attachment to describe those people who have grown up not just with insecure attachment, but with highly abusive caretakers. So when you've been abused in any way, often your behavior can come out as very erratic, very confusing, and very unpredictable. And so it's harder for people to diagnose you, even, I suppose psychologists and therapists. This disorganized category creates like a little space for people to understand themselves better if their behavior isn't quite fully avoidant, isn't quite fully anxious, and it's all confusing. So that's why this subcategory is there. That's what we believe in.
So I'd rather you see yourself through the lens of, okay, how often are you anxious versus avoidant? Because I believe all anxious attachment styles have some level of avoidance.
Anxious avoidant,
and all avoidance may have some level of anxiousness depending on how avoidant they are, how insecure they are. The further down the line they go in terms of insecure attachment styles, the more avoidant they become.
Yes.
And there'll be a certain stage where you can't bring back anymore.
Yeah.
It's just that they're a lost cause.
Absolutely.
Because they let nobody into their little bubble. You can never truly connect with them. And because of that, nothing will influence them.
They're too far gone.
Yeah, they're way too far gone.
I find that, it's kind of easier to say this about older people because when you're younger, you're still kind of more easily influenced. I think there's more hope when you're younger. But as you get older, it just becomes so impossible. And because you've spent longer in those habits of isolating yourself. And Bowlby has a word for it. He called it compulsive self-reliance. And when you've done it for decades upon decades, it's just so much harder to change those patterns. Whereas if you're a 20-year-old avoidant, maybe there's still some oomph left in you. Maybe there's some recent memories you've had of teachers, aunties, friends who have been warm to you and who have maybe created a little spark inside your soul that maybe you can utilize to heal. But as you get older, it's just,
Yeah.
it's like, stay away from me.
Yeah.
Don't come into my world. If you do, I will kill you. Literally,
Yeah.
like avoidance will protect
Pretty
their
toxic, I think,
bubble.
most of them,
They can be very toxic.
And they'll never let you in to their little bubble, ever.
Yeah, and it's just, there's a lot of people who have some sympathy these days for avoidance. And there seems to be this new camp of thought whereby, avoidance can be in loving relationships. Avoidance are just scared. They are, but you've got to understand the neurology of avoidant people. Don't just assume, if you love them enough, they'll come to you and trust you. They can. There is maybe hope, but you have to understand that in order for you to get to that, you may not even survive going down that road. You may not survive that process because you'll be so emotionally and mentally, psychologically as well, just taxed. It's a huge tax on you to try and heal an avoidant. So we're not saying that they're horrible people. We're just saying they are traumatized.
They are, yeah, exactly. That's the damage, the lifelong damage that they've been inflicted with from a very young age.
Yeah, and they can be very hostile, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep you away. Anyway, that's probably it for another.
Yeah, we'll talk more about
talk
attachment
more
styles
avoidance later.
in other videos because it is a big topic and there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's very important for you to understand what kind of attachment style you have so that you understand whether you trust intimacy or not, whether you're actively sabotaging relationships, which I find a lot of times people with especially anxious or slightly
disorganized.
Yeah.
Like people who see themselves as disorganized.
They have insecure attachment styles and they tend to sabotage things when things are going good.
Yeah, and it's really hard. It's like putting your foot on the accelerator and the brake at the same time. It's like you want can't. It's just.
So it's important to understand that and be aware so that you can start to cultivate more secure attachment within yourself. It's possible. You can definitely do it. It takes some work. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can be done. Basically, you as an adult now can help yourself cultivate that secure sense of attachment that you couldn't cultivate back when you were a baby, back when you were a toddler, a child. You can do that now, but it does take some active work.
Go take our quiz, find out your primary attachment pattern, your core attachment pattern, and read the description, the summary afterwards. You will learn a lot from that.
Yeah, and we're in the middle of producing a program on helping women cultivate more secure attachment style as well. It's not an easy process, but we want to put together the best program of its kind so that hopefully that
you can heal and not feel so like overwhelmed by your own patterns, because it is overwhelming when you come to that realization like,
And we're talking about true healing
I have this pattern that's actually actively sabotaging my attempts. That can be a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be.
Eventually you come to accept and go, it's not something that's wrong with me inherently.
Yeah.
It's something that I haven't developed because my parents didn't give me the resources when I needed them the most. And you can sometimes hate on your parents, and then you may come to accept that, maybe they didn't have the resources themselves to help themselves, whatever it is. Okay, now let's accept, we can see the truth for what it is. Now we can make some changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the power in this particular framework. We can talk about it a lot, but it's so fascinating, especially having our own kids and seeing this framework at play with our own kids and seeing what secure attachment does to how they form relationships, how they see relationships, and how confident they become as little people.
There's so many comments that people have made on our kids over the years that they were fascinated making statements about our kids, and we knew what it was. We knew all it came down to was the secure attachment we gave them. But for other people, it more looks like, oh my God, he's so calm.
Yeah. So calm under pressure.
He's so well adjusted.
Yeah, like for example,
he's so kind, and why is he so helpful? And
yeah, and he loves helping, especially when someone's in need. Our kids love to help, love to step in. Yet at the same time, they're very calibrated to people. Our oldest, he's 11 now, but at one stage he was competing a lot in jiu-jitsu, and in terms of jiu-jitsu, you're fighting someone else. It's a zero-sum game, one winner, one loser, and a lot of the times it was a very pressured environment, and he was able to stay really calm.
And we have all this parents, many dads come around and say, how do you make him so calm? Is he doing some kind of meditation or something? And I'll be like, well, I made a joke of it because I knew there's no point. We're in the middle of a calm, we can't describe it now, but there is something behind this calmness.
So that nervous
what
system,
people call self-confidence. People call it self-confidence as well.
That nervous system doesn't go from 0 to 100. It goes up in calibration with the situation that they're in.
Yeah.
So they sense the pressure and they rise to the occasion, I guess. So it's so valuable to see this framework of attachment styles working in our kids, and also understand the damage that it would cause kids who don't actually have it. All right, let's move on to framework number 4, and that is the idea between power struggles versus trust and intimacy. And I thought it's a great framework to actually to include in this, because there's so much advice out there that is designed for you to enter into a power struggle, and without even realizing.
Black cat, golden retriever.
Yeah, play hard to get, do this to make him chase.
Lean back, rotational date, one of my most hated. I hate this concept, this strategy of rotational dating. Now, if you're shocked right now, which probably most women will be, I'm not against dating more than one guy at a time. It's the strategy of rotational dating, because you think somehow that if a man isn't giving you the commitment that you need to keep dating other people until one of them steps up. Now, there are many ways that I could describe the reasons why people came up with this rotational dating framework, but I don't want to get into it too much because personally I do hate it so much. But
it's for the sense of abundance. It's a very cheap surface level of abundance.
Yeah.
The real abundance here is that if you have the skills and the confidence to go out there, lead with playfulness, and actually cultivate real sense of emotional attraction, you'll have a sense of abundance that no one else will have, because that is real. That is real value here. Having Joe Blow, who you don't really care about or want, to ask you for a date so that you go out with him every Wednesday because you have this rotation going, is not going to add to your sense of confidence and just a sense of real abundance. It's
like having 10 4 out of 10s. Rotating around you, and you're just like, we'll just keep
going ahead. You don't really want any of them.
Right, but as soon as that 10 comes along, you're not going to care about those 10 4 out of 10 guys that you have. That 10 out of 10 that you have is the one you're going to emotionally attach to as a woman. That's how it is. And that's another reason why I don't agree with this statement that women throw around, that the reason why they have a man funnel and they rotational date is because men do it, we should do it too. Men do it, why can't we?
Men fix tires, why can't we?
Exactly. The point is, don't tell me that you're going to be getting into your feminine and then tell me that you're going to rotational date like a man. Because we as women are designed to emotionally attach earlier. If we have learned anything in 15 years or combined 30 years, it's this. It's the fact that women emotionally attach earlier, and there's a reason for it. It's not that you need to suddenly go, stop it. No, be aware of it, appreciate it. And that's why I made my program High Value Attachment, because there's a reason why it exists. So please don't go out and rotational date for the sake of it, because you think that somehow, because men do it, you can do it too, you should do it too. No, that's revenge. That's not authentic. You can date more than one guy if that's how it happens. You go, sure you can, because I trust your natural feminine instincts to weed out the guys that you're not interested in. Don't have a rotation for the sake of it. It's not a strategy that's worth investing in.
Not true abundance.
It's not true abundance.
Not at all.
That's
and
right.
we get a lot of women hearing that, and they try it, but they just get so exhausted. Like, they just hate this
And
idea
the
of having
guilt.
rotation.
The guilt.
Because they have to focus on one person. Because then when you spread your attention, then what you tend to do is you don't put as much energy into the actual high value individuals.
Yeah.
And you let them slip through the cracks.
That's right. Because you're not actually.
You're not attuned.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not really attuned to them. So, again.
So that's one of the things that has designed. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you want your relationship to be built upon a mutual connection,
Yeah.
a good rapport, emotional attraction, emotional connection.
Yeah.
The more it's built on, okay, if I win, you lose, if you win, I lose, power struggle game, you're going to be both losers eventually at some point.
Those people who I've known who've started relationships like that are either now divorced or they are still together, deeply miserable.
Yeah, and there are a lot of miserable relationships out there.
Sure, there are. Yeah.
So you don't want to play that game. And with any advice that you see online, ask yourself, is this going to lead me down the path of power struggles, or is this going to lead me down the path of actually creating a deeper connection? Because I can tell you, in those relationships where it's based on connection, intimacy, and trust, the value in that relationship is infinitely greater.
Yeah, and you can see it as well in your interactions. Yeah.
Infinitely greater, and that value, not only is it for you and me, but it's also for everyone, for the kids, for people around us, people we interact with. The value is there. They see it, they sense it. They're like, wow, what's going on with that? There's something there, but they can't pinpoint it because they're not in a power struggle game.
It's like, do you want to be an example or a warning? And everybody's relationship is an example or a warning.
Yeah.
And so try not to get yourself stuck, unknowingly get yourself stuck in that warning relationship.
Everything that we've ever done, it's never been about power struggle. Because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. In a power struggle, I'm trying to take value from you in hope that I get more than you do, and you're trying to take more value from me in hope that you get more than what I get. And that's a zero-sum game.
You're just hurting each other as well. Yeah.
It's either I get more, you get less. It's a zero-sum game. The value doesn't multiply. Whereas if you're connected, you inspire each other to produce more value, have more value.
Exactly.
And there's more value for everyone.
And you do things, you get out of yourself to do things for that person that you love.
Yes.
And then when you have a family with them, or if you have a family with them, you become more resourceful and you do more. And I think a lot of women are afraid of that commitment, They're asking for commitment, but they're afraid of that commitment.
Yeah.
I think some women even sabotage emotional attraction because they just, it's scary to be that vulnerable, to invest in someone. But it's worth it because it's a resource. It becomes this invisible resource that you are always able to draw upon.
Yeah.
And it's the only real meaning, when it comes to these romantic relationships that we have. It's the only real meaning. You can't go into it just looking to take what you want and having power over a guy or having control. I feel like for women, it's a lot of the times it's about control.
Yeah, significant certainty. That's it, rather than connection. And they're living in the other part of the Venn diagram now.
Yeah.
So as long as you're getting what you want, you're pushing me down. You're holding me down, you're controlling me, and vice versa as well.
Yeah.
So, at some point, people from the outside will go, oh, the woman is the man in that relationship, or she's making all the decisions, or he's just trying to control her and being abusive.
Yeah.
It's those types of relationships. And people can see that. They sense it from a mile away.
Yeah.
All right, the last framework, number 5.
Yeah, masculine and feminine polarity.
Polarity and energy. Now, I left this on purpose as the last framework because I think it's so overly misused and abused and bastardized. And I feel like there's a lot of valuable features of this particular framework, but most people use it in the wrong ways. Okay, because here is the thing, in terms of masculine energy and feminine energy, and people love to talk about it because it's so fascinating.
It's exciting.
And there's a bit of mystery in it.
Exciting, yeah.
But the thing here is, when two people come together, if there's a good sense of rapport, if there's emotional attraction led by playfulness, then the man is naturally going to show up in more masculine ways. He doesn't have to read a set of 14 different rules to know what is masculine, what is not masculine. And same goes with a woman. She'll naturally be more feminine in her expressions because there's that sense of rapport. That's it. So people, they go way overboard and go, giving is masculine and receiving is feminine.
Please help me. I can't
Or
cope with that
chasing
anymore.
is masculine and not chasing is feminine. How ridiculous is that? Okay, we all chase what we think has value. Not that I'm suggesting you to chase, but I'm saying that's a human thing to do. All right, we chase success because we see value in success. And you know, a couple of years ago, we were at a jiu-jitsu comp, and the actor for Thor, what's his name?
Chris
Hemsworth was there because his son was in the comp, and you should have seen the number of people chasing after him, looking for a photo.
Yeah.
Right? That's chasing. Does that make him masculine? No, it's just they see the value and they want to just have that little bit of value rub off on them. That's all it is, right? That's all it is. So it's not masculine or feminine to chase or not to chase or to give or not to give. These are human things to do.
Feminine is very giving. It is.
And so is masculine.
Yeah, that's right.
That's absolutely. And you can do it, you can be masculine and be in a taking, like value taking. You can be feminine and value taking.
Yeah.
So those are independent ideas. I don't want you to mix them up, because the more you mix them up, the more you confuse yourself.
Yeah.
And people tend to do that. Like there's the saying that, you know, like a charlatan would try and confuse you, throw some new terms to try and extract money from you, whereas a good teacher will simplify terms, simplify things so that you understand it straight away. If you can understand something straight away, you can progress, you can transform, you can make changes. Whereas if you're confused, you know, that's when you start, you know, they get the longer end of the stick, extracting more money out of you, and you don't actually get the understanding at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So we're here to try and simplify things for you so that you understand masculine, feminine. Okay, there's a limitation to this framework, and the uses. Now, I would never use masculine, feminine when two people first come together, because if there's rapport, he's trying to be in his masculine and she's trying to be in a feminine. The value of this framework is when you've been married for 5 years, 10 years, and you get into a rut, and you forget what you were doing 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were first dating, when you're showing up in different ways.
Yeah.
And so it gives you a sense of, oh, what's the essence of that masculine energy? What's the essence of the feminine energy? And we can break it down right now. We've got classes on this, but we can break it down right now. For the masculine spirit to be triggered, it's challenges. For the feminine, it's praise. That's it. It comes down to this. So the more you praise a woman, the more she glows and her femininity grows. The more you challenge a man, the more he has to rise up to that challenge and live on the edge and solve those problems.
So here's a good way to illustrate this. Would you rather, if you're a woman watching and you believe you're feminine at your core, would you rather a man told you, hey, your hair is looking so beautiful today? Or would you rather he said, hey, I bet you couldn't run up that mountain in 10 seconds? Right?
Yeah.
Which one feels like it would light you up? You can put the answer
In
below.
fact, we have a quiz on this. We have a quiz on feminine energy.
Yes.
How feminine am I really?
How naturally feminine are you at your core?
So
you can take that quiz and
9 or
find
10
out.
questions. It's very short. I'll put the link below. Take the quiz. It'll tell you exactly what percentage feminine you're living in day to day. The whole point here is sometimes when you live together, when you've spent a lot of time together, what tends to happen is that I become more like her and she becomes more like me, in order to connect on multiple different levels. But
Sometimes you lose that.
Yeah, the problem is then you forget, you know, you go, but she's not like me.
Yeah.
She's not supposed to be like me.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to be like her. So you forget to like think, oh, praise is what stimulates her feminine. Yeah, you forget that because you think she's kind of just like me.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So the framework has its uses in those situations where you've fallen into a rut in a long-term relationship. Then you can evaluate, look at your relationship from a different lens, from the lens of the masculine, feminine energy polarity.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think it's quite useless at the start of a relationship, because at the end of the day, it comes down to value. That's why the perceived value disparity is number one.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I just want to say, you know, like a lot of people will leave a comment or they'll say something like, sorry, but you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You know, that's not true. That's just not true.
Sometimes trash is trash.
Yeah, sometimes trash is trash. Yeah.
Yeah, real trash is real trash. Yeah.
Yeah, real trash is trash. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And real gold is real gold.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Just because someone doesn't recognize gold doesn't mean it's not gold. It's still gold.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll be clamoring for it if there were to be a total collapse of the currency, which is another conversation for another time. But yes.
Exactly. So, and also a sub framework in that is the light and dark energy.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in different times.
Yeah, we'll do a video on that.
Yeah, because I think it's popular now, but it's also getting bastardized in many ways.
I was so sad to see that the concept of dark feminine and light feminine is now getting bastardized. It was so sad.
We wrote about this some 14 years ago.
We had a whole book on it.
And
that we phased out, by the way.
yeah, but we have a whole section in our program, Commitment Control 2,
Yeah.
on this topic. The whole idea here is there's light energy, there's dark energy. You want to, in order to be whole, you want to embrace both of them. There's no such thing as the dark being better than the light or the light better than the dark. People just create hype around these ideas. But the idea, the true value here is to understand that both has value. Both of the energies have value for you and for your partner as well. So the more you tap into your dark feminine, the more you're able to help your man tap into his dark masculine, and vice versa for the light.
Yeah.
So it's important to understand the value in both of them and know when to tap into each. So again, we'll probably make a separate video on light and dark because I think it's very, very important.
This video has become quite long as well. So.
It's massive.
Yeah.
So these 5 frameworks, I really want you to study them, understand them, and really get good at seeing love, seeing relationships, seeing intimacy, seeing attraction through the lens of these 5 different frameworks. Number 1, the perceived value disparity between men and women. Men and women perceive value very differently. Number 2, one and only versus one of many. Very important because ultimately men put women in baskets. In fact, men have 2 different types of kids. Kids that they invest in and kids that they don't care about.
Yeah.
And that is directly related to what basket the woman is in. Number 3, attachment styles, attachment patterns. One day I'm going to change the terms of attachment patterns because they are patterns.
There are psychologists who use the term patterns, and I think, it's clear that it's probably the more appropriate.
I love Bowlby. I love what they've done.
Yeah.
I think patterns was the more appropriate word there. So understanding your own attachment patterns from secure to insecure, which goes through anxious and then eventually avoidant. And you're going to have a combination of those if you're insecure. And understanding your partner's attachment styles and what they need in those moments. Very, very important. And also help you understand if you sabotage your own relationships, why and where it comes from. Number 4, power struggles versus trust and intimacy. Don't make your relationship a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game meaning only one person wins, the other person loses. Whereas it has to be a win-win situation or just a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
If someone is losing your relationship, everyone's losing.
Yeah.
Okay. So important. Any advice that you see on the internet, anywhere, ask yourself, is this perpetuating a power struggle or is this going to help me on the path of creating a deeper sense of connection, deeper sense of trust and intimacy?
Yeah.
And lastly, number 5 is the masculine feminine energy polarity framework. And again, the value there is to understand that if you ever get stuck in a rut, what you were doing when you first met your lover, you're no longer doing.
Yeah.
And so to return to that, you understand what it takes to show up in a masculine way, what it takes to show up in a more feminine way. It has value in that sense, and it's another great framework to look at existing relationships from, not brand new ones.
Yep.
All right? I hope that made sense. I hope that's added some value to you. Again, we have so many links. I'm sure we'll put a lot of them down below and go through them. We have a lot of quizzes. Go through them. We have a lot of programs as well that we've produced in the last 15 years. It's worth your while to go through them, study them. Again, we have a money-back guarantee like we have forever since we've begun our business. And the whole premise is if you're not a raving fan at the end of 30 days, by the end of the program, let us know. You know, if you haven't received 10 times the amount of value that you've invested in with us, then, you know, I want to know. I insist you get your money back. That's, you know, that's how we've always done business, and it's not about to change. I want to make sure that you transform your love life, and if you don't see value in it, then, you know, you deserve your money back. So check out the links, go do the quizzes, and check out the programs that we have, and really study these 5 frameworks. They will change your life, I promise you.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I don't think I have anything else to add. Just, pick a quiz, do it. It'll give you more information, more insights into yourself and how you can use these frameworks.
Yeah, get the understanding, the awareness, and the skills.
Yeah.
You need those 3 things: understanding, awareness, and skills. Skills is obviously the hardest one, but it takes, the skill of, let's say, leading with playfulness and banter, so powerful, so valuable, and so few people have it.
I know, it's a hard skill to have.
But start with understanding, awareness, and practice your skills.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, we hope you enjoyed that video.
That's all from us.
Leave us a comment below and a like on the video if you liked it. And we'll see you in the next video or email.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.